So Hannah from Hannah's Books adapted the Shakespeare Journey Tag, or the Victober Journey Tag, that's been going on the last few months. Seems to be the trend for people to adapt it, and she did a great job in adapting it, because I'm a huge non-fiction fan, and I thought that comes across my channel. So I was rather surprised that Hannah should make such a video and not tag me. How outrageous. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, Book Time with Elvis, with me, Mark. And despite the fact that Hannah failed to tag me, I'm going to do this tag anyway. It is, as I say, the Non-Fiction Journey Tag, and it's to celebrate the event of Non-Fiction November, started by a book olive. So let's go through the prompts here. Number one, what was your first experience reading non-fiction? I can't really remember a specific instance of beginning to read non-fiction. It was probably history related. It may well have been something to do with Zulus, because I was obsessed with them as a young boy. I loved the film, and I had several books pertaining to the Zulu Wars when I was a kid, and I used to read them. I used to look at the pictures, of course, and read the accounts of soldiers and things like that. Or it could well have been some form of travel writing, because we used to have a lot of that kind of thing lying around. Number two, has the reading of a work of non-fiction ever brought you to tears? Yes, quite a lot, and I seem to be somebody who unashamedly cries, actually more as I've gotten older. I suppose one of the more recent books that brought me to tears was, oh goodness, I could remember the title, but I can't remember the author. Oh, that's right, of course. Our Bodies, Their Battlefields by Christina Lamb. I should have remembered Christina Lamb. She's a wonderful journalist, which was all about the use of rape as a weapon in warfare primarily through the 20th century and 21st century. Horrific book, but extremely important book. And I would recommend everybody read it, just because although the subject is terribly difficult, I think it's just important that we read it. So that may have been the most recent work of non-fiction that brought me to tears, especially tears of despair and tears of sadness at the world, really, and humanity. Number three, are there any people who have played a significant role in your non-fiction journey? Yes, I would probably actually have to say my dad. My dad was a voracious non-fiction reader. He still is, although he tends to listen to audiobooks more than read physical books these days. But he always read and had a lot of non-fiction works lying around the house, and he would be happy to talk about it, and I used to find it fascinating. So I would have to credit him with my sparking the interest in it, and then obviously my mother and my grandmother as well for purchasing and taking me out and allowing me always to get those books. And of course he did as well, but you know, he traveled a lot when I was younger, so quite often if we went to the shops and things, it was with my mother and grandmother, and they would always say, yeah, okay, pick up a book, and I would from time to time pick up a work of non-fiction. Number four, do you enjoy documentaries? Do you have a favourite? Is there a subject you'd like to see discussed on film? That is, what should Ken Burns film next? Well, I love documentaries. I think my taste in them has changed somewhat, because I watched a lot of war documentaries as a youngster. I loved the series The World at War, which was an incredible 26-part maybe series on the First World War, done in the late 60s, early 70s maybe. I can't remember exactly. It's in colour, or at least the interviews and things are in colour, and it interviews surviving members, or people who survived the war, and people who took crucial part in the war, who were still alive at the time of filming. So that's really interesting to have these kind of first-hand accounts, and it's definitely still one of my favorites, and I will watch it when it's on. I have loved some documentaries, even on some kind of slightly obscure subjects. There was a fantastic documentary. I can't remember the name of the art critic. He's got a Polish name in England, but he did two fantastic ones on Vincent van Gogh and Paul Gauguin, which were really, really engaging. Obviously, Van Gogh isn't a minor subject, but I don't, it's not often you come across maybe documentaries on Gauguin, perhaps, but it was really, really great. And there's so many. What I would love to see, actually, living here in the Czech Republic, I would love to see an English documentary on the activities of the Czechoslovak legions in the closing stages of World War I and their actions during the Russian Civil War. In fact, that has all the makings of a massive Hollywood blockbusting epic, but nobody's taken it on. It's quite a remarkable story, really. It was a group of soldiers who generally may have been prisoners of war, I suppose, fighting for the Austro-Hungarians against the Allies, were taken prisoner in Russia, and then they decided to join with Russia because obviously Czechoslovakia was in the process of wanting to have its independence and establish its nation. And then there was the Russian Revolution and the Russian Civil War, and the Czechoslovak legions decided to throw in their lot with the White Russians, and they pretty much had to fight their entire way across Russia in these like armored trains all the way from European Russia to Vladivostok. And legend has it that they were able to steal or procure the Tsar's gold, and that eventually became the foundation of the money in the Czechoslovak National Bank, right? So, but it's an amazing story, so I recommend you check it out. But I don't think there's been a big documentary on it, at least in English, in the English-speaking world. So, there we go. Number 5, have you read a biography about or a memoir of a person with whom you identify? I can't think. I mean, I've read a few memoirs or biographies of people who've spent their life abroad. There's, for example, Gweilo by Martin Booth, who grew up in Hong Kong. I can identify certainly with that. But I do enjoy a good memoir from people. I mean, some of these. I absolutely adore Jerome K. Jerome's My Life and Times. I think it's a fantastic both memoir and social historical document of the late Victorian era. So I would recommend everybody pick that up. I like military memoirs just because of the kind of attitude of people. There's a fantastic book by Sir Adrian Carton de Wyatt, General Sir Adrian Carton de Wyatt, who was a general in the Second World War, and the book is called Happy Odyssey. And this man was extremely remarkable, really. I think he got injured maybe in the First World War, I don't know, a dozen times or more. He lost a hand, he lost an eye. He then went on through to the Second World War wearing like an eye patch, and he had like an empty sleeve. He was involved in like 2 plane crashes. He escaped from a prisoner of war camp in Italy. Amazing man. And he did all sorts of things, including winning the Victoria Cross during the First World War. But he doesn't mention it at all in his memoir. It's up to Winston Churchill to discuss it in the introduction. So yeah, it's good fun. Number 6, read aloud a short passage you love from a work of non-fiction. Well, this was really difficult because I love so many, but there was one that stayed with me, and given the fact that this is obviously non-fiction November, but it's also World War November, and it was a passage that came to me recently, so I thought I would dig it out, and it's from Lynn MacDonald's fantastic book, 1914. I recommend you check out all of Lynn McDonald's World War One books. She's incredible because she weaves the narrative through with first-hand accounts. She spent, I think, something like 20 years interviewing survivors on both sides of the First World War. I can't remember the subtitle of the I can't remember the subtitle of the book. It's 1914. That's right, 1914, The Days of Hope, by Lynn McDonald. And the passage I'll read to you is as follows. If my ebook reader decides to actually open, then I'll be able to read it to you. Okay, seems you can see I'm pausing this. I'm determined not to go down the long path of having to edit because it takes forever. But it seems that it's working now, so I can read to you the passage that I want to. Not far from where the London Scots had made their first advance early in the morning, a young corporal in the German army was caught up in fierce fighting with the French close to, you'll have to forgive my pronunciation here, Witzkeiter village. Their attack had been repulsed. The Bavarians had been pushed back to Kruenert Wood, and the French guns had proved a match for the German. Shells were still crashing down. Parts of the wood were on fire. The road and the fields beyond were littered with dead and wounded, and a little distance along the road a wayside chapel was engulfed in flames. Captain Hoffmann lay wounded near the chapel, and his corporal determined to bring him in. Even with smoke to give a certain amount of cover, it was a risky business to crawl from the shelter of the wood into the open, when any movement brought a volley of rifle fire from the watchful French infantry across the sloping fields, and the young German was awarded the Iron Cross in recognition of his bravery. Captain Hoffmann died of his wounds, and in later life the corporal who had rescued him made no secret of the fact that he looked on his own miraculous preservation as a sign that great things were in store for him. A single bullet might have changed the course of history. His name was Adolf Hitler. So there you have it, right? That's that. I remember reading that and got a chill down my spine over 20 years ago. More than that, actually, when I first read the book. But it's a fantastic series. I totally, absolutely recommend it to you. Number 7, do any works of non-fiction intimidate you? Which ones and why? Well, not really. I don't like to be intimidated by books. I mean, certainly there are things that I just probably wouldn't read. Maybe just because I'm not interested in it. I would have to have some form of interest in it or a very strong recommendation to read something. But I can't say, I don't know, maybe Newton's Principia or something would intimidate me, yes. But I wouldn't really pick it up anyway. It's not my cup of tea, but I don't know. Let me know if you have any works that intimidate you. But I don't think I can really say that any do in this instance. It's just a choice. You know, I have to have some form of interest or strong recommendation from someone to pick up a non-fiction work anyway. Number 8, what tips would you give to people hesitant to read non-fiction? Why? You know, I it's one of these strange things is people are always so happy to pick up, you know, often fiction with ridiculous premises and things, and you can read non-fiction which is so fantastical and unbelievable, but whereas the novel you're reading is just the product of somebody's imagination, when you read some of these non-fiction works, it's, to me, that it's much more special that it actually happened. You know, I mean, you can read Tolkien and these battles, but then you could read, you know, his battles with orcs or whatever and that kind of thing. But you can read an account of the siege of Vienna and the arrival of Jan Sobieski with the winged hussars, or the fall of Constantinople in 1453, and you read in a good account of that, and it's far more amazing than anything produced in fiction because it actually happened. You know, it actually happened to real people like you and me, and that makes non-fiction an extremely special genre, and should definitely you know, everybody should definitely read it. Number 9, what are your favorite works of nonfiction? Too many. I've read a lot of nonfiction in my life, be it journalistic memoirs, travel writing, loads of history books. I have to say that generally I've enjoyed probably 90% of the nonfiction I've read. I can't really give you, as frustrating as it is, I can't give you a short answer of my favorite works of nonfiction. Perhaps what I'll do is maybe give you like a top 5 or a top 10 of the nonfiction I read this year in another video, and then maybe I'll take the time to go through and think of a top 20 or top 50. I'm not going to quite go the Steve Donahue route and do top 100, or at least 100 recommendations that he made, because I think it was a 2-hour video, but there we have it. So yes, but I will do that at some point in the future if people are curious. And number 10, tag other booktubers. Well, Hannah tagged everyone except me, so there's no one left to tag. But should you wish to do this tag, of course, then consider yourself tagged by watching this video. So thank you very much, everybody. Do take care, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye-bye.